writer, director, Andrew Bujalski. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for coming. Yeah, so tonight's screening is special for two reasons. One of which is very nerdy, but this whole movie is very nerdy, and I'm hoping you wouldn't be here if you weren't into nerdy. So this is a movie that we shot on primitive analog video tube cameras, and at the time we finished it, you know, it was only really ever intended to be seen on video because that's how it was made. And in fact, when it was released to theaters, you know, the places that looked best were the places that we were able to show it on a video format that retained that original video frame rate, and you know, that kept it looking as old school video as possible. You know, some theaters wanted to show it in the new format, DCP kind of mimics film, and that was always my least favorite way to show it because it meant changing the frame rate to a film frame rate, and which you lose some image quality and you lose some of the weirdness of the video. But there was always a thought in the back of my head, which was, even though I don't like this thing that mimics film, you know what would be really weird and amazing is if instead of mimicking it, we just went all the way and we actually got the thing on film. Then it might start to get interesting again, because the whole movie is about the analog digital divide and a time in our collective memory when maybe we were stepping from one into the other, and so the absurdity of going to film was very appealing to me, to take something that was never meant to be seen on film. However, I mean, for a movie that takes place, you know, in the kind of, we never quite pinpoint where it is, but if this movie were to have come out at this time, that would have been the only way you ever would have seen it in a theater. You never would have put video on a screen in a movie theater. That was sacrilege back then, so that, you know, this would have been the way to, so I always wondered what that would look like, and then a few years ago, the Chicago Film Society, of all people, came to us and said, hey, did you guys ever think about making a 35mm print of Computer Chest? And I said, well, I think about it all the time. I'm thinking about it when I fall asleep and when I wake up. And we managed to make it happen, and I was really pleased with the results. So it's this weird kind of fetish object we're screening tonight. It's like, it's not quite the right way to watch the movie, but maybe it's better than right. I don't know. It's up to you. I'll leave that to you. The other, less nerdy reason that it's a special evening is we have a bunch of cast members here. We've got Mr. Wiley Wiggins is in the house, and oh, look at that. And James Curry is somewhere around here, and Bob Savaston, I see him sitting right here. You don't have to run up if you don't want to. Well, I'll make you run up. Go away. Dan Eggleston, no, come back. Do whatever you want. Dan Eggleston's in the movie. Cindy Williams is around. Rebecca Beagle is around. I already said Savaston. Is Patrick Reister around? Is Patrick here? Well, maybe he'll show up later. Who did I forget? 1, 2, 3. That guy, remind me your name.
Mocha Latte.
Mocha Latte. That's really your name? Was that your name when it was
My parents had a sense of humor.
Okay. All right. And what did I forget? Well, anyway, we'll find them later. Thank you all for coming, and we'll bring these folks up and we'll chat later.
Yeah.
Come on down, everybody.
All right.
Let's see. Let's get Patrick Reister. Let's get Wiley Wiggins. Let's get James Curry. Let's get Bob Savaston. Let's get Cindy Williams. Let's get Rebecca Beagle. Here they come.
And they've all had 3 scotches, by the way, so this will be great.
Yeah. Look at that. Look at that.
All right. And we've got 3 microphones to go around, so let's really make these count, guys. All right, I don't know.
You've had the whiskey.
I have had whiskey. All right, first of all, a Q&A like this is impossible. So let's just be grateful for whatever we get, whatever insight we get out of this. All right, so this movie's a masterpiece. It's great. It's like one of the great films of the millennium so far. It's the greatest. I love it so much.
Good night, everybody.
So I didn't think up a question while I was watching it. I was so knocked out by it. Well, why did you make this movie, and what do you think of it now? I guess.
Well, I mean, it was, so I watched, I hadn't seen it in a while, but I watched this print, not tonight, but a few months ago, and I had a lot of fun. I'd forgotten how kooky it is. It's all, I mean, it's really, it's when a movie works, or if it's any good, I think it's usually just this magical alchemy of getting all the right people in the right place at the right time, and we had an extraordinary cast. These folks and so many others on screen. I think it's,
So great.
it's one of the great bizarre casts in cinema history. So credit to them and to all the pieces being right. I mean, this was such an unlikely thing in so many ways. And this had been a fantasy project of mine for years. It had been a kind of back of the mind thing that always seemed too crazy to actually attempt. And when I was when I was a new dad, we had a baby at home, and I was afraid. I could see the future in which I never made another movie. That was that felt very palpable to me. And at that time, I think I was trying to get a much more conventional project together. With conventional movie stars and stuff, and that was a thing that almost happened and then fell apart, and I was panicked, and I thought, if I don't do something now, I'll never do anything. And so I pulled this 8-page treatment out I had, and I called up the two fellows who ended up producing the movie, Houston King and Alex Lipschultz, and I said, guys, I've got an 8-page treatment here that's been sitting in my drawer. I want to shoot it on I want to do some kind of experimental camera stuff. I don't know how we would do it. And I don't actually have a script. I just have an 8-page treatment, and frankly, I wouldn't know how to write a script because it's all about technical stuff I don't understand. I don't have any money. There's no way we'd get any money for this. I don't have any cast. I don't. It's on a totally arcane subject matter that I don't know anything about, and it's a period piece. And we go in 3 months. Are you in or are you out? And they said we're in, and then somehow we survived it, and it was so much fun.
It was a doomed project from the beginning.
Yeah.
There was no chance of success,
Yes.
of anybody making their money back. And then, amazingly, it becomes a success to esteem. It becomes a hit.
Well, I don't know about that, but but we made it, and I wouldn't have tried if I weren't desperate. And it all, I couldn't be more pleased with it. And which is it's just all these people showing up and giving so much to it and making it into magic.
It's look, when the world ends, people will still be watching this movie, and that's like 20 years from now.
Yeah, 20 minutes.
That's
Yeah.
generous.
Yeah.
So, do any of you guys have any real special memory? Because this was filmed in 2011. It was released in 13, right? Filmed in 11?
Yeah, so I've known Andrew for a really long time. I met him in the early 90s or late 90s. Yeah, late 90s, that works. He was living in Austin, and his roommate was an animator on Waking Life, and was also star of his first film. And then I met him again in Los Angeles, which was at a very dark point in my life, which he got to witness, which brought us together, I hope. And then we acted together in a Friends Project. And somewhere along the way, I had drunkenly told him that I never wanted to act again unless I had some sort of facial prosthesis that I could hide behind. And and I forgot that I ever said that. And Andrew contacted me and was like, hey, I have this like strange movie that I want to do, and we'll figure out the nose. And I was like, what is he talking about? Is he talking about the fact that like everybody always talks about how I touch my nose too much in Dazed and Confused? That's like kind of a shitty thing to say. I thought we were friends. But no, like he actually called me up and like they cast my face for an artificial nose that we didn't use in the movie because it didn't work on film. But I did the mustache instead. I don't know if you guys could tell, but that was not my real mustache. I cannot actually grow facial hair that I know of other than like a couple of weird spots. And it worked out. That was my Dumbo feather. And this was an amazing, it was a combo dream project suicide mission. And I'm happy to say it's the last movie that I'll ever do. To hell with everything else. Computer chess forever.
I already got one. Man.
You got one.
Oh, okay. Am I supposed to tell a story like that? Because I got nothing.
If you have a special memory.
Well, I had auditioned before for Andrew for another movie that he didn't cast me in, but we spent like an hour with him saying, now do this and now do this. And it was, afterwards I said, I don't even care if I get cast or not, because that was a great, fun, sort of almost like an acting class. So I don't even, did I audition for this or did you cast me? I don't even
I don't remember either.
Yeah, I don't remember. I have no idea.
We're all auditioning for Andrew Bujalski all the time, right?
Right.
Everybody in this room.
I will say that due to Facebook, I realized that 6 years ago today, we were in Sundance
Oh, wow.
with this movie.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Rebecca, any
That's all I got.
Any special memories from the making of this?
Well, speaking of auditions, Andrew, did I make this up or did I get this part because you watched me proposition Johnny Mars in a bar?
Did I watch you proposition Johnny
I
Mars
think you
in a
did.
bar?
It was an unsuccessful proposition.
I'm sorry.
This is scandalous.
But, yeah, but Rebecca
For
and Johnny are two of the,
romance.
they play husband and wife. They're two of the encounter group.
Maybe I made that up, but I believe that
I
was
don't
my
know.
audition.
Well,
How awkward.
okay.
But my other memory is just you made the irresistible offer that my parents would also be in this film, and watching my parents do that to bread has stayed with me.
I
shot
love your
so much-
parents.
Margie and Terry Beagle, who are also making are phenomenal. But we shot so much. That was an amazing group of actors all around. The 8 of you, and an amazing group of people. And we shot so much that we didn't use, which I felt terrible about. But I also so enjoyed shooting it. I never wanted to call cut.
Well, as Chris often says, it's not called couples therapy, it's called computer chess.
Sure.
So there's a reason that
Sure.
we were on the cutting room floor. That makes
There's
sense.
an alternate movie to be made from that footage, I'm sure.
You made me eat cold egg rolls, Bujalski, and then you did not use it in the film.
I saw them before you go on a plate.
I'm in this movie just by weird circumstance. I've known Wiley for a while because we bonded at a friend's going away party where we talked about obscure French video games from the 1980s, and there was, I think Wiley's pointed out, like everybody, there was a circle like 6 feet around us where nobody would stand because nobody wants to hear two people talk about French video games from the 1980s. And he introduced me to Andrew, and Andrew asked me to do a screen test, and I was drunk, so I said yes, and I don't regret that for one moment. And then we made this bizarre but amazing film where I ate cold egg rolls and drank scotch. And it really was scotch because they wanted me to drink, well, it was legal, there was a bartender there. They wanted me to drink iced tea, which is just the antithesis of everything I stand for as a British person. So I asked for real scotch, and it was real scotch. It was Highland Mist, which is the worst scotch I've ever tasted in my life, but it was still better than iced tea. And it was at that crazy bar, the Cloakroom, which is down by the Capitol, and like I joked before, if they haven't vacuumed there, you can look to the floor and actually see the shreds of our civil liberties, because that's where all the backroom deals happen between the politicians. And it was amazing. That's the day I remember. I don't remember the hotel scene because it was 100 degrees outside, and I actually had a fever of 101 when we filmed that.
Wonderful memories. Bob?
Well, I want to point out we shot one of the scenes across the street at the Holiday
Oh, yeah.
Inn. I don't really have a memory, but it was really nice to see my old landlady of 20 years, Edith Mannix, there at the end in color. She died about a year ago today, maybe a year and a week ago, at age 98. So it was cool that Andrew was able to put her in his film.
Edith was a really cool, really inspiring person. Bob introduced me to her. She plays Papa George's mother in the crazy color sequence. And she was so game for whatever we were doing. We didn't know what we were doing, and she didn't either. But you know, a lot of that material in that scene comes from her. And I just fell in love with her doing that, and I kept in touch with her over the years. And she was a super inspiring human being. I learned, if you want to live to 98, I think this is what I learned from Edith. Puttering in your garden is one of the secrets, and also, and she was a regular churchgoer. I mean, very social person. She kept that thing up, and she yeah, she was very, very sharp until her last day. So, yeah, Edith.
She's in Waking Life too.
And she's in Waking Life as well, yeah.
What is it we're supposed to say?
Just if you have a special memory from the shoot.
I just remember always laughing around Dubek and just trying to point my face away from the camera anytime I was around him. So like that bongo scene that he's doing with the icebox, like that eventually started each take like getting longer and longer. Like it was probably 5 minutes at one point, and I was just supposed to sit there and take it.
The tension in this room during that whole scene when you go and sit on the bed, everybody's like, what is he doing?
The right thing.
It's an amazing scene. The tension is just, it's such small little movements, but the tension is enormous. Okay, I wonder if we have any questions from our audience. I don't think we'll be able to get to 1,000 questions because we got so many people here, but I'm sure somebody's got a question here. Right over here, yeah.
All right, I got a two-part question about the credits. One part was I saw Wiley's name under additional programming, so I was wondering if he could answer that. And the other part was I was wondering why Jeff Nichols had a special thanks.
There was also a pixelated out name in the credits. I don't know if you saw that. So the additional programming, so we had all of these computers that were generously donated. A lot of them came from the Goodwill Computer Museum, which is unfortunately no longer with us, which is an amazing resource in this town. A lot of these computers didn't boot. Some of those computers we had to use motion graphics to put terminal screens on. A lot of them did boot, and the nice thing about computers from that time is a lot of them booted into some version of BASIC, which, I mean, a lot of you, even if you're not computer programmers, you may remember learning some form of BASIC in like elementary school or something. So what I had to do in a lot of these cases was write some shitty BASIC program to make it look like it was playing a chess program every time somebody pressed return. So that was my additional programming credit.
But Wiley was also, I mean, at every stage of, us trying to, because I don't know a fucking thing about computer programming, so I had a lot of questions, and Wiley was one of the people that I was going to a lot throughout all this. Yeah, so at every stage, anything involving computers he was involved in. And as for Jeff Nichols, who is a great filmmaker who lives in town, who he did a couple of years ago, he had Loving and Midnight Special and Mud with McConaughey was a big hit, who is a really smart, really interesting, nice guy. But he's just like a filmmaker buddy, and we were having breakfast once, and we were just talking about cockamamie projects or fantasy things that we would never do. And I said, yeah, I got this thing that I've been thinking about, and there's no way it would ever get made. And he said, well, he's got a way of, Jeff is very like, you can understand why people want to give him money, because he's convincing. When he tells you to do something, you're like, yeah, I should do that. And so he was like, well, write up a treatment, you got 2 weeks, give me treatment. And I was like, okay. So he's the guy who dared me basically to write this up. And that 8-page treatment that then sat in my drawer for a couple of years was written on a dare from Jeff, hence my eternal gratitude.
And while we're on credits, what's the deal with the blurred out name in the credits?
Oh, there was a guy who's so nice, and you can see him in the movie, but he was, I think maybe, I think he did ask us if there was anything, dirty in the movie. And I think maybe, this was not a conversation I had. Maybe we were not entirely forthright.
Okay.
And
it's a pretty filthy movie.
I don't know. Yeah, I think. Anyway, so then he saw the movie and he went and he looked very pale afterwards, and he was afraid that he might get in trouble with a teaching position. So I said, no problem, sorry, and we'll blur your name out. The postscript to this though is a few years ago. I can't remember how I went down this hole, but I saw on we blurred his credit out at his request, but on IMDb now he has reinstated his credit and put up a picture of himself in a tuxedo, I think like holding like a fake award or something. So I think he has re-embraced the movie. I was relieved to see that.
That man's name is Richard Linklater.
Thank you.
Right over here.
Oh yeah, I just in watching the movie, I was wondering, was Robert Altman any influence on this?
Oh, you know, Robert Altman's an influence all the time. No, I don't think I was, it was not a conscious, I never set out to do an Altman thing. There's so many times on, you know, multiple movies I've made now where I've thought, oh, fuck, Altman would know how to do this, I don't. But yeah, he's always in there for sure.
Yeah, who else has a question? Anybody? I see a hand right over here. Yeah.
Oh, so Gordon Kindleman was one of my professors in college. And
Yeah.
I was wondering how he got involved. In
Yeah,
this.
cool. Where did you go to Chicago?
Yeah.
Gordon Kindleman, who plays Professor Chesser. Nobody in the movie pronounces it the same way. He is married to a dear old friend of mine. His wife, Ann Dodge, plays his wife in the movie, and their daughter plays their infant daughter in the movie. And so I knew Gordon through Ann. Ann was actually here last week. She's also in my film Beeswax, and so she came down for that screening. And Gordon was another one of those, you know, first people I remember years ago when this was still just a fantasy. I think when I was maybe even before I wrote that treatment, or I don't remember what stage in this, but I remember kind of, I had this one book about computer chess, and I convinced Gordon to come out to, I was in Chicago for some reason, and convinced him to come out to lunch with me, and I was like, talk nerd to me, explain what is this, and he was very, very helpful, and he's great in the movie.
The first time I saw this, I thought I was like, oh, that's Andrew Bujalski playing that role in this film, because you sort of physically resemble one another.
I'll take it as a compliment.
All right.
I'll take it as a compliment.
All right, let's maybe have one or two more questions. Right over here, yeah.
I also thought that was you the whole time.
Yeah.
Gordon is a slender man. You know, he doesn't have an ounce of this on him. Anyway.
My question is, what's Michael Papa George up to these days?
Oh, Miles Page, who plays Papa George, who also, he's in my first movie, Funny Ha Ha. He's about to be a dad. He's about to learn some things about life. But he lives on an island. He's an eccentric figure. He lives on Orcas Island off of Seattle. He was a chocolatier for a long time, and a gardener and a roofer. Yeah.
He was a chocolatier for a time. Like, how many people can you say that about?
True fact. Chocolatiers.
Yeah. So in the course of the story, he's like sort of like a really sort of special sort of figure. I'm loud.
Okay.
He's sort of like a special sort of figure that's sort of like, you've got like this sort of analog world and this digital world, and you've got like Papa George. It's sort of like the Kingdom of Gaul is divided into three, and there's like these two things, and then Papa George is this free radical. Like, what does he represent in this story to you?
I don't know, man. Well, you know, I mean, in the little research that I did, I mean, you know, I did what research I could understand.
Yeah.
And there was a great book. I think I Googled the phrase computer chess, and there was a book called Computer Chess, and it was like somebody who was around at these conventions at the time wrote it up, and it's pretty technical, but there's also some kind of readable introduction, and there are photographs of some of the terms, which were hugely helpful to our production design department. And you know, one thing I kind of got a little bit of a sense of is that basically, you know, there were, I think, kind of three camps coming at this, and there was, you know, Wiley's character represents the academic side, which was a big part of it, and James's character represents the kind of corporate side, that was a big, and then there were just the weirdos in their garages, obviously many of whom, you know, made history, but I mean, there's some real characters in that world.
Yeah.
And it made a lot of sense to me to bring my old buddy the chocolatier in to get weird.
I wonder if we have maybe one last great question, and maybe we could even have a question for somebody other than Andrew over here, for one of these people who've honored us with their presence. Yes.
I just had a quick question.
Yeah.
Were you in the movie in that one scene, or somebody that just kind of looked like you?
Apparently they all look like me. I'm in a few frames, but I'm not going to tell you where.
No, I think I know where. Thank you.
Okay.
I am Andrew. I'm played by Andrew.
That's just a tribute that you were including yourself.
Now, is your little three scotch thing true?
This question is a plant because we talked about this earlier. The three scotch thing comes from a study that was actually done. So
by you.
They actually did a study. Somehow they got this funded. I think they were just alcoholics that were creative and got free drinks out of it. But apparently a very small proportion of the population is more focused and able to perform better at both acts of coordination and mental tasks on about 2 drinks, and as I said in the movie, any more, and it goes. And they call it, amusingly, the scientists dubbed this the Churchill gene, because Churchill famously has scotch in his hands at all time. And apparently, after this study came out, many more people claimed to have this gene than who actually have this gene. But it is a real thing, so that's kind of where that came from. I think I mentioned it to you and you said, say that, Andrew. I literally had read the article like 3 weeks before we started filming.
I had assumed that was a long-held belief of yours, but
no, it's a thing, it's a study,
Sure.
it's real.
James, do you have the Churchill gene?
I like to think I have the Churchill gene. I have in my life written a lot of code on about 2 drinks. I have a co-worker in the audience, so this isn't true at all, Colby. Don't worry about it. But I have done that a lot in my life. But as I get older, the number of drinks gets less, I think, unfortunately.
I think it's nice to have a drink on occasion, like if the sun goes down or something like that. I think we'll sort of wrap up our Q&A, but you guys will be around for a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and I gotta say one thing, because I forgot. So if anybody was here 2 weeks ago, you'll remember that I gave away a bunch of posters. I had a bunch of posters in my attic, and I want to get rid of them. And then last week I was so excited that I forgot to give away those posters. But if anybody wants a free computer chess poster, they're just sitting in the lobby. And if anybody was here for Beeswax or has heard of it or has never heard of it but just likes free posters, there's some of those out there as well. Because I forgot to bring them last week. Free posters in the lobby.
I'm so glad we could help you clean out your attic.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that we had this chance to all get together and watch this amazing movie again. Thank you so much for making the movie. All of you guys are unbelievable, and thank you so much for watching the movie. You did great.
Thank you. Thank you.